Who's heard of Jammers as a first thing? Well, Jammers kick up a storm at the moment. He's been on several radio stations. He's got a serious following on YouTube. He runs the Speakers Club. And also he's got a book out.
Now you're tuned in to DJ Jammers on Bless Radio. 5 till 7 is the Jam Master Show. Every Thursday beer good vibes aflow. With etymology to make your brain cells grow.
Words have got many different meanings, alright? I'm going to discuss the meaning that's applied in a certain way that keeps us restricted today, alright?
Now you're tuned in to DJ Jammers on Bless Radio. 5 till 7 is the Jam Master Show. Every Thursday beer good vibes aflow. With etymology to make your brain cells grow.
By the power of the pen, they didn't need to use swords anymore. And if you look at the word sword.
Alright, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest for today. Great esteemed radio broadcaster extraordinaire in the building today. He's flown in from New York. He's been doing some journalist work outside in New York, and he's flown in especially to be here announcing the great man himself, General Buzzy B. House.
Yes, my mic on?
How was your flight down from New York?
Quite a deceptive one. Since I was in, since we're dealing with deception today. It was quite a deceptive flight. I'm not quite sure how we got here.
All right, well,
I just found myself here. It's all about deception today.
So, for those of us who don't know Buzzy B, or those of you who don't know Buzzy B, the few who don't know Buzzy B, can you tell us a little bit? Tell us a little bit. I know you flew here, but I'm not the flu. You better have the flu. But can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I like you said, I do a number of things. I present a radio show as well. I've got my weekly radio show to deal with all sorts of topics.
When do you have your show?
It's normally on a Monday. It's every Monday on SLR Radio.
What time is it?
7:15 to 9 o'clock.
Right.
Dealing with all different type of topics. I'm also an educator. I'm in and out of the system.
In and out of the system.
Yes.
Interesting. We're going to get back to you on that.
How does that work?
And what's the name of your show?
It's 100% SPAR show. The SPAR stands for Special Personal Attention.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wow, that's you've got Buzzy B. The next in the house we've got Brother Dougie from SLR Radio.
Yeah, and he will make me. He will definitely. Dougie is behind us. You see the art and receptions.
Right, he's still okay. Dougie's still signing autographs.
I mean, this is very good. Jammers is looking for Dougie, and Dougie's in front of him. That's the art of deception, having him right here.
Yeah, he's
in the studio. Now, Dougie, when Dougie introduces himself, now he's definitely going to make me look like my size, like a bee should look. He's mammoth in terms of the work that he does in the community.
You're in tune to DJ Jammers on Bless Radio, UK's #1 station for great music. Don't touch that dial.
So, Dougie, can you introduce yourself?
Okay then, so again, it's really good to be part of Bless Radio as an experience, and I give thanks to the management at the time. Also want to give thanks to Brother Jammers for inviting us on this show here where we can open up some reasoning. See? So the question is, you probably want to know a little background about myself. Yes, I used to be a ex-gambler, ex-womanizer, Hold on. Hold on. Sorry. I'm in the wrong place. You know what I mean? I have to get my conscious hat on now. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? How dare you come in here and talk about you be an ex-gambler, ex-womanizer? You know what I mean? Weird. Sorry, you see I've got a problem. I nipped my tablets this morning. You know what I mean? You know? So I'm in a different place now. So no, the truth of it is that we call Find Your Voice, and we focus around personal development. Yeah, I think I'm in the right track now. Focus around personal development, and we focus around health, education, life choice, relationship. So again, it's been a journey, and I always have to give blessing to where I'm at today. Always give blessing to those people who come to my life to take me to where I'm going. And yes, so I have to give thanks.
Right, that's right. So you've got the two guests, right? So after this track, we're going to start the discussion, and they've deceptively kind of taken over the show almost there. So I've had to just step in and show some authority. So yes, so after this, we
remember it's your show.
Hello, mate. Well, go on.
What day of the week is it?
What you ask me them question for?
I just wanted to know.
It's Thursday.
Oh.
And you know what I go on Thursday?
No, tell me, mate.
It's a Jam Master show.
All right.
On Bless Radio.
Nice one.
Things sweet like Jamaican mango. Put a G and a O, that spells go.
Love it, mate.
Remember to turn on your radio and switch on your stereo.
Oh, I'm doing that now.
Oh, DJ Jammers, I play right now.
Cheers.
Right, we're going to start the show, The Art of the Deception. In the house at the moment, we've got the esteemed Brother Dougie, and also Buzzy B, who's flown in from New York. And the topic is deception. The first time we're going to start the show with some secret tape from the CIA has landed in my hands, and I'm going to play a little excerpt, and then I'm going to get a guest to comment on it. So this is a secret from the CIA tape on the trickery on deception from their manual. So it landed in our hands via the Mastermind Intelligence Center. So we're going to play a little piece, and then we're going to get our guest to comment.
Hello everyone, this is Anyman here to remind you that perfectly executed illusion is the ultimate goal. Plausible reasons are substituted for reality to conceal true purposes, and spectator attention is lulled and diverted.
Right, so this is from the CIA, and they're talking about illusion and deception. Buzzy B.
Very interesting indeed. How about this for opening statement? I've heard that. I've been thinking about it. Because since you're talking about deception, how about this for opening statement? And I think it perhaps relates to what the CIA just said. Perhaps I probably worked for them in my former life. But how about this for...
Are you a CIA in your former life?
I said perhaps.
Oh.
Not to think about the English language, you see.
Yeah.
There are a lot of modal words,
right.
Perhaps. not concrete. How about this for opening statement? The truth lies behind the truth we speak.
I like that what you said there. Yeah. Dougie, what do you get from that statement you just made?
How about that for the truth lies?
It could be a relationship
the truth lies behind the truth we speak.
Okay then.
Or we tell. Whichever word you want.
I'm going to make Buzzy B expand even.
You see how that right?
People get words because lies come after.
People,
lies behind.
I just want to bring back to the. So people, do you see what just happened there? Buzzy B posed the question, and Brother Dougie showed you a skill in deceptively pretending to answer the question, and he's actually bounced it back to Buzzy B. So that's an excellent skill there. But Brother Dougie just
couldn't answer the question. That's why I asked Buzzy B to answer to go and elaborate it more, just to because he's kind of looked into it and turn it on his head.
Yeah, I just thought about it because we're talking about deception. Because I think the second word, the third word in what I said is weird because it says the truth lies behind. Lies have a double ambiguous world there, because lies behind me that is behind it somewhere lying down. But lie can also mean that you're not telling the truth. So it's a play on words as well. Let's say the truth lies behind the truth we speak, and it can also be literally true. All at the same time.
So, can you give us an example in your life, in your personal life, that you never wanted to talk about of this? This an incident relating to what you just said.
Something in my personal life.
Yeah, that you don't want to talk about.
That why I used to be a Martian. In my previous life.
So, see, and you see, I don't think we're going to get very far with this. So I'm going to play another part of the tape, and then I'm going to throw it to Brother Dougie. Once again, we've got in our hands a tape on deception and trickery, a manual from the CIA, and we're going to just play another excerpt and get Dougie
from that.
Yeah.
Execution must be carefully planned, exhaustively practiced, and skillfully performed. To be successful, the illusion must withstand both the direct observation of onlookers or casuals without exposing either the participation or identification of the agent.
So basically, the man's giving some tips on how to deceive, and he's saying that it could be in a relationship, it could be in politics, it could be with money, and he's saying that you've got to give her an illusion to deceive. What do you think about?
Well, you see, it's quite interesting, because what comes to my mind straight away is the whole thing about politics, right? And where they give you the impression that if you vote for this particular party, everything will be all right, not knowing that these people have a hidden agenda, and their agenda is really to control. Right? Now then, also you look at the whole thing about religion. Religion comes to me again, they give it the impression that if you pray and look up into the sky and you pray again and you do an offer, make your offerings, again everything will be all right. Again, it's a total disillusion, right? And very deceitful to the people then.
Okay, can I hold you there?
Yeah.
So basically, you're right. So so we're talking about deception. The origin of the word deception comes from late Middle English, from the late Latin deceptio, from deceptia, meaning to deceive. Other words in relation to deception is deceit, deceitfulness, duplicity, double dealing, fraud, fraudulence, cheating, trickery, duping, hoodwinking, underhandedness, deviousness, slyness, cunning, craftiness, willingness, artfulness. So even your best friend, or even your girlfriend, or even your priest, if they get in a situation, they might start using some deception, lying and pretense, treachery, and even more. Buzzy B, would you like to comment on what Dougie was saying about deception in pharmaceutical and religion?
Well, I think that perhaps the pharmaceutical industry is probably obviously you're mentioning business here, and obviously I think the very essence of business is actually wrapped or actually underpinned by deception, really. A lot of people don't perceive it as such, but could they accept it as just good business practice, or someone, a business person being smart, meaning that he was able to con a lot of people into doing something or buying something, and he's seen as having he's astute. He's astute in his business dealings, and a lot of pharmaceutical companies are like that in terms of if we want to talk about business.
So why would you say the businesses are structured like this?
I said the very essence of business, because the reason why I say that, when you look at businesses, there's a question as to whether that business can be ethical. So if I'm going to say, particularly the way that capitalism works, it works on a minimal investment and maximum output, so that I can accumulate as much money as I can. So if I'm making, say, garments or whatever, I'm going to try to make them as cheap as I possibly can.
So what is a
so if I get someone, say in the hither parts of Africa or Asia or somebody to slave labor for 8 pence a day, do I really care?
So what was your definition of capitalism then? Or
it's just what I said to you.
For those who are not,
my idea is a system that is actually based on the private person owning the means of production, and also the accumulation of wealth. And obviously, as we see it, the way it works, minimum input in terms of the resources, but maximum output. That's the very essence of it.
So do you say any way this system can change, or is it this?
Well, there is an argument that says that perhaps it is the best system so far that is able to distribute wealth. Some people think that perhaps socialism is. Some people think that communism was the best system in terms of wealth distribution. But as we see the world over, that capitalism, the people, how many percent of the population that owns the majority of the wealth? And the majority of the people don't own almost anything, or somewhere in the middle. And some people are poor. So some people say, well, perhaps it's not the best system. But some might argue, well, what's the alternative to the capitalist system?
I wonder if I could just jump in here and just on to what Buzzy B just said here, right? If you type in "meet your straw man," right, some very powerful information will just come up that shows you how deceitful they've been doing to us. Your birth certificate, right? Do you know that we're on on the stock exchange, the floating on the stock exchange, and we as people come with, so your birth certificate, numbers on it is worth whooping money. Right, but people don't understand that. Right, so there's so much we can explore here. There's a thing called the black code. Just type it in. Right.
Was that the black code you said? Yeah.
The black code.
Yeah.
The black code. It came into existence in 1836, and what that does is that the black code is like a law to those who were enslaved. So the slave master was able to take advantage of them. Yeah, it's very deep, very, very deep. But again, perception that we're talking about.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and there's some excellent points that you've raised. I'd just like to endorse what you're saying about the freedom code. That's the same thing that happened when the slaves were so-called free, given a mule, because if you don't own anything really, like you don't own property or possession or even your identity, then you're free to do what? You're the master to do what? So basically it is freedom, because you're dumb, because you think you've got access to do things, but if you do not own anything, then you're just running around under the deception that you are somebody. You're following an identity that's been given to you. You're following an ideal that's been given to you. You're using a language that's been given to you, and all the access you have to anything somebody else has created for you. So yes, Dougie, that's some excellent points.
Hold on, I just don't clarify. Some just text me, say, "Boy, I never know she used to be a womanizer and a gambler," right? I just said it just to open up the show. You know what I mean? to perceive. But. Yes, I wasn't a gambler, but I used to like women still, in my early days, I feel like everybody else, so just want to set the record straight, what I mean?
Okay, so we're going to have a little break, and then we've got another guest to introduce, and then we're going to go back to Buzzy B, who's going to comment on what's just been said. So we're talking about corruption, bamboozling, behind the score, underhand tactics. So before we get to Buzzy B, I think it's the perfect time to bring in DJ Supreme.
You make it sound like I've been brought here because I'm the deceitful one.
This is your welcome to the show, actually.
Oh my God.
So yes, Supreme, good to have you back here. The topic today is going to be the art of deception, and also you've got. I see you brought your co-host along with you.
She was here before me.
in your great show.
Let's make it known.
What's your show? Where do you broadcast from? Let people know who you are.
Okay. All right. My name's Supreme. I'm from Conscious Radio. I do a show called The More Knowledge Show. We talk about areas of control. The show's based around the areas of control. You know, health, law, sex, sport, entertainment, education, health. You know, these are the things that people are using us and controlling us. And it's very interesting that you've got this topic this evening, and that the Speakers Club is doing this thing on deceit, because that's what they've been doing to us for a long time, isn't it? When you really look at it.
Who's been doing it?
Well, politically.
Right, okay.
When they get us to vote.
Right.
How many, and I'm glad Buzz and B's here, how many of them have had their manifestos, got us to vote for them, got them in power, and then once they're in power, they don't keep to the manifestos that they've asked.
Can I hold you to that? Yeah, Buzzy B, I want you to respond to that, but can we just introduce the glamorous Lady Essie from the Speakers Club?
Good evening, listeners. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are listening in the world. I'm Lady Essie. I co-host with Spin Doctor Supreme.
Yeah.
The Spin Doctor, the More Knowledge Show on a Wednesday. I also host the Speakers Club, co-host with Brother Dougie. So, talking about deception.
Deception, corruption, bamboozlement, you name it.
Everything
today. Yes, so we're going to let you listen to some of the guests before you jump into Diva. So at the moment, DJ Supreme and Buzzy, Brother Dougie raised the topic about politics, and then Supreme's endorsed it. So Buzzy B, from your expertise,
would you want me to
comment on
which one you want me to comment
on what was just said by Supreme?
Well, of course, that politics obviously involve. I think again, like business, I think that they actually twins. I think politics is where the art of deception is really where you get the epitome in terms of the art of deception. I think it's at its highest level there. And like Supreme said, the politicians get away with it over and over again, and they will almost lie to the people, sometimes even blatantly, the people can't even see the lie. But they will still go and they will protest and they'll make noise and say that you didn't do it the last time, and they'll hand it over to another bunch of people who's also doing exactly the same thing, and this revolving cycle just continues.
Since you brought into this, and you're I think your expertise in this circle, I want you to listen to this.
It's about expertise.
Listen to this tape and this from the CIA on deception and trickery, and give me your insight into this.
This is Any Man, here to remind you that perfectly executed illusion is the ultimate goal. Plausible reasons are substituted for reality to conceal true purposes, and spectator attention is lulled and diverted. Execution must be carefully planned, exhaustively practiced, and skillfully performed. To be successful, the illusion must withstand both the direct observation of onlookers or casuals, without exposing either the participation or identification of the agent. Strategic misdirection becomes even more effective when combined with camouflage and illusion. Proper stage management techniques provide reasons for the audience to believe their eyes instead of their reason. Such operations also had applications in naval deceptions, visual observations, and rationalize events as non-alerting. Afterward, they have some operational applications of the art of deception. 1. Introduction and general comments on the art of deception. 2. Handling of tablets. 3. Handling of powders. 4. Handling of liquids. 5. Surreptitious removal of objects. 6. Special aspects of deception for women. 7. Surreptitious removal of objects by women. And 8. Working as a team. You should pick up some important principles through this.
Yes, Buzzy B. So that was exclusive from the CIA manual on trickery and deception. So these people have made a skilling and an art into this. So what's your comments on it?
Well, listening to that, if people are, like Becky said, that there's an industry out there created through ignorance. But if you listen to that, I mean, the fact that even though it's saying that the CIA is doing it, I don't see anything spectacular or revealing about it, because it happens every day. If you're a little more discerning, and that we're inclined to know what's happening around you, or all the tactics that they use in there could be quite evident to you if you choose to look for them. For example, when they talk about plausible reason, politicians use it all the time. If I want to persuade you, I have to give you a plausible reason to do something that fits in with your psychology, something that fits in with your background, something that is appealing to you. I think one of the best tactics in terms of dealing with human beings, it doesn't matter, race doesn't even matter. If you appeal to people or to their sense, or to their senses, when it's sight, just appeal to the 5 senses, and you pretty much got it knocked down.
That's some excellent viewpoint, Dougie. What do you have to say about personal skills that people use to deceive? What would you say is relevant to that, Dougie?
Well, I mean, all right, let's see if we can write on this properly, because I think what Buzzy Bees bring to the table is the whole thing about if you can capture their emotions, right? Now then, the church is a good example, because what they do, they appeal to your emotions. So, for example, if you pray, as I say, and you be good, you go to heaven, so-called heaven, right? So what they do, they're playing to your emotion, yeah, and that's what they do. They go into our psyche, right, and that's where they have us, really, to our emotions. And once you can bring people emotionally over, once you get to the emotion, you can win people over.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Doug. And Supreme, what do you have to say?
I was just gonna. I was gonna use the word emotional manipulation.
And what is that?
Manipulating someone emotionally, because Dougie's touched on it.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way of being deceitful to someone, to me, is to find them when they're on their low. When they're low, you can feed them all the stuff that you want to deceive them with. Not that, because even the CIA was even telling us, when you're at your lowest and your guard is low, that's when someone it's easy to sell you something.
Yeah,
it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to. Yeah, it's easy to deceive you. So emotionally, I'd say it's a manipulation of your emotions is when someone is going to be more deceitful to you. Yeah.
But Supreme, you write on something very interesting there, right? And you know what comes to my mind now? The whole thing about betting shops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? We love, no, the whole thing about betting shops. Because what they've done, right, they give this false impression about hope. Right? Because you see the things that, why is it there's so many betting shops? Right? And you know where there's a betting shop, you know where the betting shops are? You will see a post office. Right? So, for example, right, that if you're on your benefits, Jaro or whatever, right, you see a betting shop, you say it's a way out, hope. So it's orchestrated. Very, very orchestrated. You see what I'm saying? The bead on our emotion and addictive behavior and so forth. You see? So I'm just going to write on to what Supreme was saying.
So you're saying the shops have been strategically set up?
Yeah, of course, my brother. Of course. But hold on. There's over 70 betting shops in Haringey. Right?
For example. Yeah.
Well, 70 betting shops in Haringey, and there's over 40 in Tottenham. I remember I said to you, look where the post office are, then look where the betting shops are. Right. Then look where the liquor store is. It's all it's strategic. And they will tell you, right, they make money in poor areas. Right. People are addicted to it. People don't make money at the best of them. They're addicted to the machines. What's in the betting shops.
So Doug, you're saying the man's going to come out with his gyro, yeah? Try his luck on the horses.
Yeah.
Lose on the horses, go to the liquor store, get drunk, and then go to the pawn shop and pawn his goods before he gets home.
And you see, and he's not.
Don't forget the church, and then he goes to the church afterwards to say sorry.
Yeah, and you see, he's not conscious what he's doing. right? He's not really conscious of what he's doing because he's looking a way out. So he comes at the. He comes at the. He's got his gyro check or whatever, and he sees what? He sees a bench shop there. So he sees friends in there, right? He might try a thing. Right, he probably get a drink just to mess up head anyway, right? Even if he win or lose, he still mess it up and still have a drink anyway. So you see what's happening, right? Now all you have to do is just go in the community and observe this, and you understand exactly what I'm in Tottenham High Road. Busby, you know that there's a post office, right? And beside there's about 3 or 4 bench shops.
Yeah, that encircle the post office.
Yeah, circle. No,
Yeah, it's true.
it's true. That's a fact. Right? Right, and look with liquor stores, about 2 or 3 liquor stores about the place, and the fast takeaway food.
Right, so I'm going to bring in Lady Esty on this. We need some female energy in this. So what would you say that causes? Why do people deceive, or what causes deception?
I guess because deception isn't subjective based on if someone feels they've been deceived. Because I'm just throwing it in a mix because it could be, it could be that someone isn't about intention.
So it's about, say again, subjective is
subjective because it might be you may do something. I may do something like I remember we had a discussion with Busby last week. We were talking about like business, for example. Say we were partners. Is mine not on?
Let's come back again.
Say we were in business together and there was a deal, but I didn't tell him.
Yeah.
I didn't tell him about the deal because it was a really good deal, but I needed to kind of know what this deal was.
Yes. Right.
Speak to the investors by myself, and I got all the information and I got the deal and I closed the deal, but I didn't tell him, but I came to tell him after I closed it. I may not have been deceitful, but he may perceive that I was being deceitful because I didn't tell him.
Yes.
Right.
So sometimes it could be how the situation is always about context.
Yeah.
It's always about context and how about context and how someone else.
So if a woman's boyfriend's got 3 or 4 women on the side,
well,
and she's happy because she doesn't feel that she's been deceived.
But then that's what I'm saying, that's her perception of the situation. Somebody else may say she's been deceived,
right,
but she may have deceived herself that she's not being deceived. She
or deluded herself.
Or deluded herself that there's no deception, but he's strategically being deceptive because he's obviously lying to all of them. But then he's literally going out and...
Or perhaps not.
Or perhaps not.
They all know.
Or they all might know and accept it. So again, it's subjective, and it's all about the intention and how the person perceives the situation.
Yeah. But isn't it the power behind deceit? Because people will say you get the term like willful deception. So isn't it, if the person set out to do that, isn't it more painful on the recipient, or does it make any difference whatsoever?
Which goes back to emotion, because we are emotional beings, so deception will always be based on emotion, because you'll pick out the emotion you want to use. It's either anger, it's either guilt, shame, so it depends on the emotion that is taken up, so it will always be based on emotion.
So I'm playing with words. I'm doing a jammers tonight. So it's the emotion that lies behind the deception.
Yes, it's always the emotion.
Right.
It's always going to be emotional. You can't deceive someone who's. But I guess as humans, in some cases, everyone's going to be deceived at some point, but it's going to be emotional.
Right. Can I stop you, Dougie? Do you agree with what Lady Esther just said there?
Yeah, I partly do agree in essence what we're saying, because you got to understand that we are emotional creatures, we're emotional creatures, and the biggest force in life, right, is pain and pleasure. Most people run from pain to pleasure. That's why people take crack, cocaine, and whatever, because they're in a lot of pain, right? So what we need to understand here is that we're wired up emotions creatures, and we wired up to certain habits, addictive kind of habits, and unless we really go into this, understand why we do things, and it comes that we've been perceived, that's the bone up, we've been perceived, we've been perceived. So the emotional side of stuff plays a very part of addictive kind of behavior, why we do things. And relationship, the church, as we was spent that earlier on. Politics. And we can go on and on and on. Emotions.
Supreme, what have you got to say to that?
First of all, right, listening to the CIA recording you play, it did sound a little bit like you. So I don't know. I don't know.
I'm glad you did with the CIA.
I don't know. The recording sounded like you, but I'd like to hear it again, right? Because the points the gentleman raised. But I wrote down a little note what I thought deceit was. Just gonna read out bullet points of it.
Yeah.
I put down untruthful, dishonest,
representation.
Bluff, propagating belief, half truth, concealment, negative violation, false belief. That's what I've put down as deception. When I put them down, I started to think of, in the media, on the telly, things that have happened that have come to me where I think, whoa, there's been a deception here. And one of the deceptions was that I saw was there was the president of America, when he came on and he said, I never had sex with that woman. Was it Bill Clinton? So what did he actually use that day?
He said he never. It's a word. He said I never had a sexual relation. So
yeah.
Technically, you could say he's right. He's factually correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Because if you use it,
so
it was all based. He's not lying based on what he said. He's not lying based. It depends on the question that you ask him.
Yeah.
But if he says that to you, then what does sexual relations mean?
Yeah. Well, I felt I was deceived.
If it means intimate, whatever, but if it just means a peck or whatever, then. And based on what the media said had happened, could that be construed as something sexual? So
the next point, the next point I was going to make. Now, was that staged deception? Because whoever was in the room that was going to question, or whoever the media was there, was not going to ask him the truth. Ask him, but did anything happen? No, what happened, the deceit is this is what I'm going to make you believe, right? I'm willing to go and you understand, that's what I call deceit, because the person has decided.
But let me just turn on his head a bit. What, because you mentioned things like faithful, doubt, mistrust. There's quite a few words you mentioned, yeah? Right? Now the question is, right, because we're kind of grabbing things all over the place here, right? Mm-hmm. What made people behave that way? What made people do that? That's what I want to look at. What do you think? What do you think people do to behave that kind of way there?
Can I come in there, and I'm going to bring in Busby as well? And I think a key element of this is the language. Basically, the language, the vehicle that deception's carried on is through the language. So the language has kind of been concocted in a way that one word can have 5 different meanings. It's like a perfect vehicle to carry out a deception. And one part of the key element on deceiving is a terminology of the word. Basically, if you go via the dictionary, it's constructed of meanings. Meanings means a vague word. So that means you can tell your partner, I don't think we're working out. So that way you don't have to tell her the real reason that she's stopped washing it so regularly, she's got bad breath. The language has kind of been constructed in a way where it's been constructed to deceive.
Hold on. So an example.
Is it the language or the users of the language?
So for example, if I'm going to I have my queen, I have my wife, and I want to check a next woman. How does the language play?
Well,
I don't understand.
In the ancient societies, in African language or another African language, when you said left meant left. So here in this society, you can say left, and left also means right. It also means to go back. It also means to encircle. So the language you can say that to your girlfriend. I think we should spend some time apart. When you really mean that you found another woman on the side. So through the vehicle of language, you can disguise your real intentions. You know, you can, and this is a lot of people, even like the word love. Your interpretation of love might mean I'm taking to McDonald's once a month. You know, for the Happy Meal. You know, and that's your interpretation of how you love your partner, and then you're surprised that your partner disappears after 2 weeks with your best friend. You know, and then she finds out her idea of love is like to feelings, you know, show feelings and show love, you know. So the element of the language system is a cause where it breaks down our communication through how these words have been constructed. Would you?
Well, I certainly agree with that in terms of how language, because language is obviously the engine of deception. I would say, so since human beings communicate for the most part through language, but also through actions. You know, and sometimes there's a matching there's an attempt to match the language with the action.
And he's getting some international calls coming through.
I think it's his girlfriend. Who he just told that he was at work.
No, it's the accountant calling. Right? It's the accountant calling. I think in terms of the language, you know, I was talking about matching language with action, because my way of knowing if someone is honest or less deceitful, obviously it's difficult to measure, but in some relations that I have to deal with, whether it's business or not, or whether it's general friendships or even my intimate relations, the way I measure things is not through what the person tells me, it's through what they do. Particularly because I have to match what they're telling me with the actions that follow afterwards. So I can hear you and listen, that's fine, but I'm not going on with anything until I match those actions with the action that's got. There has to be a degree of action that follows that up. If you're telling me something, because if you just tell me something, I don't see the action to match it. Then for me, it's pie in the sky or smoke and mirrors or something like that. So I think language is, like you said, is one of those things that people use all the time. Well, I think it's one of the most tools that's used in deception is language. In advertising, in relationship, when a woman says to you, "I want to talk," it simply means she wants to talk.
Can I stop you there? That's over to Lady Essie. Buzzy B's actually made an accusation.
And not you.
I guess males and females, we do have to communicate.
We do.
And sometimes...
I think
that's it, just take that. So.
And sometimes, yes, it can be that when you say we have to talk, it doesn't mean we have to talk. But sometimes it just means everyone has different communication styles, but deceptive. And sometimes maybe it's an issue that hasn't been resolved that needs to be brought into a new problem. So a deception kind of comes in because.
So how do you reckon we can resolve this then? Resolve this, because it always seems like an endless. We've got the latest phones, we've got the latest inventions, but we still can't create a way of between men and women. Can't create a way of communicating.
Well, there's a book that I read. It's called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruan, and he says there's first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. Second agreement, it is, but he says one of the agreements, be impeccable with your word. The second agreement is don't make assumptions, always ask questions, don't assume. And third one is don't take anything personally, because what anyone else does is all about them, not about you. And the fourth one is always do your best.
Right. And what's your one to add to that?
What's my one?
Yeah. We've got to give some of the men some secrets here, you know. So.
I think it's about active listening. Sometimes it's not always about listening to what she said. Sometimes it's about listening to what's not been said, and sometimes it's about. Sometimes as a female, you may just want to offload. You may not want the solution. You just might want to. But men tend to offer solutions. So sometimes it's not about the solution. It might just be, I've had a hard day at work, and you just kind of going off at one, and it may not. She may know what to do, that she probably needs to stop talking to that person by the tea point, but she just maybe just want to be listened to rather than having a solution. So sometimes.
So, could you brought up an interesting swing to this? Is about like through the different communication patterns between men and women in a relationship, it might not really be deception. It might be that the partner is not reading the signals.
Yeah, that
and then
sometimes.
the situation goes into a different scenario than was expected, and then deception gets put on the label.
That could be it, because sometimes it starts as miscommunication, and then deception may like go on as a layers as it goes on, because it doesn't get resolved, and then deception seems to. For example, the female likes shopping. And so she goes out, and the man's like, stop going shopping. So every time she comes in, she hides the shoes and the bags and pretends that she had it in her cupboard for a long time. And goes, oh, that's a new dress. Yeah, I've had it for ages, but she probably bought it last week. But he didn't know that she did. So maybe maybe it was miscommunication about, I like shopping and spending money when I'm depressed. Right. So, but now, rather than telling him she's depressed and she spent some money to cheer herself up, she's now being deceptive because she's now hiding the fact that she's going shopping because she's... Do you know what I mean? So sometimes, like you said, it might be miscommunication, but then it leads to...
Excellent. Yeah, I see Supreme he's got a funny look on his face as you're talking about
because
that.
I'm just so
reveal something about you.
Lady Essie's just letting everything out the bag. I thought I had Columbo beside me. And talking about Columbo, exactly what Lady Essie said. Columbo lets people speak. He makes them tell this series of lies. He asks them one question. He lets them, because what happens is someone who's doing deception has a series of lies, right? Or they have a series. Then he has to decipher that series and look for the fact where he's going to break it. Say, well, you know what? Fact A doesn't match up with B, C, and D.
It doesn't make no sense.
So when you are being deceptive, you have to live the life of a liar. So you might wake up the next day and forget,
I said
what I said yesterday and miss it. But the person who you've been deceiving will always remember. Well, someone who's clued up will say, aha.
But you didn't say that yesterday.
Yeah, especially a woman. They're very good at that. Hold on a minute.
That's also true.
I thought you said you was here.
But quite often, if you... the thing with a lot of men, if you're right about that, but if men would get clued up like that, they're talking... The reality is that a lot of women are in that same position, because I've experienced that. I mean, ask them, because they think that men don't listen, we don't listen, they can tell you anything. And when I said, well, hang on a minute, but that's not what you said the other day. And she said, I said, no, I said you did.
Yeah.
Or like Columbo, I listen. And I always ask a question. Why you ask me that for? I say, hang on a minute, a bit defensive, aren't you? Yeah. If you've got nothing to hide, why are you being defensive? You just ask a question. And I always say, if it doesn't make sense to me, then somebody's lying. I'm not saying it's to me. I'm not saying it's to you, but there's a lie somewhere. Mendacity.
I know I'm straying
somewhere.
I know I'm straying. But even the courts, when you go to court, they know about deception. That's why they will say, okay, Jammers is coming in. We'll get here. Whoa.
Right, I think we're going to have a little break there.
Have a break.
We're going to come back after the break. Boom. Yes, we're back, family, and I had to quickly make a quick exit there because some accusations there. But some interesting points were raised by Supreme, and it's based in when you go to court and politicians, and what has happened really, they've constructed the language in such a way that, as I said earlier, they've given you one set of rules to follow or a certain level of language to use, while they've got a legalese language that they use, and this legalese language actually is a more productive or more constructive qualified way of communicating. And you find out that when you go to court. You know, the way that you've been taught how to communicate happens to be something where you need to use a lawyer as another resort, because the way you've been taught is like a torture mechanism, where like tautology is where you're told a cat is a cat because it's a cat. You're not being given any reasoning behind why the letters or the words equal the action that is involved. So basically, the politicians and the law courts use a level of language that us as a community have been denied access to. Have you got any points to say on that, Buzzy B?
Yeah, yet again. Yet again.
Maybe it's both of them.
Buzzy, if you take the General's chair, please.
Steve's there, Steve's. Turn it off.
Yeah. I do agree there in terms of the, the way that the different professions, I suppose. I don't think it's just the court. It's not just the court that does this. It's a lot of professions do have their own language and codified way of speaking, and unless you speak that language, then you get lost in all the terminology. So, particularly more so in the courts, it's probably the most complex and abstract language in terms of talking about the law. And quite the average person is often lost in conversation, or lost in translation, I'll say, while listening to the proceedings and what's going on in the court. So yes, so again, it comes back down to what we were talking about again, in terms of the language of deception, or the language of hiding. And legalese is perhaps one of those languages, in my view, that is perhaps the most complex, because as they say, that 9/10 of the law is interpretation, and you need a certain type of mind or training to even decipher that kind of mind. But I often wonder if a lawyer needs to have the qualities of what constitute deception in order to be top lawyers. Are they good deceivers, or are they just intellectually good at interpreting the law? It's just something that I've always made me think. Is it all intellect, or does that, or do you have to have a certain character to be that?
Brother Doug, you were talking about the straw man. So, in relation to the law and deception, would you say that, as well as constructing the language as a lawyer, or in the financial business, you have to be able to deceive as well? Do you believe that that's a skill that's incorporated in that area?
Okay, so you're talking about in terms of the straw man.
I'm talking in terms of, in general, the characters in general. Like, if you're a lawyer, or if you've created the system of law,
okay,
or if you create the system of finance, do you need to be deceptive to be successful?
I would say so. Because you have to be skillful to deceive people, and there's art there, so a lot of psychology involved, and I would say I will. They won't be in the position they are in right now, because they're deceiving the people. And I think language and law, is tied hand in hand. It's a marriage. You can't divorce two of them. And I think that a lot of it is in the language. Because we look at the whole thing about the straw man and law and everything, a lot of it is all of language.
I want to just take you up on that. First, I want to say is like, as well, because language comes from the word literacy. Lit means to quarrel, and terra means land. So literacy is based on possession of identity. Yes, possession of identity and land. an idea. So I want to throw this at you, Dougie. Black History Month. It was created initially for us to celebrate, our achievements. But do you think now it's been manipulated to keep us talking about history and not moving towards the future?
Oh, that's a very good question. A very good question. And as you mentioned it to me now, I would say so. I would say so because what's happening? People are stuck into October, and there's all different kind of events happening over the place and everything, right? But what happens after October? You know what I mean? And going to November, you see? I mean, it's good that we have these events and everything. To me personally, we should use these events to mobilize and take things to another level. But the same people who go to these events in October, you won't see them at a Kwanzaa celebration. I'm making a general sweep. You won't see them at Kwanzaa celebration. You won't see them at certain kind of events what's important by other people in the community. You understand what I'm saying? So it's we're just stuck in this October where I think we should have Black History Month should be every single month of the year. I think that every single library should have a Black History Month in one. Say for example, Tottenham should have it in October. Warsaw should have it in November. And you see what I'm saying? Have these activities going on and keep the spark moving. And cause to me, it's good in terms of people galvanizing and people interested in information and knowledge, but it doesn't just stop at October. And I'm glad to say you brought it to the table. Yeah.
Thank you, Dougie. Because that's we're also doing at the Speakers Club the art of arguments as well, and there's a 3-stage thing to arguments, which it also ties in with deception. One is blaming. If you can keep people blaming, that means they're stuck in history. They're stuck in the past. So Black History Month, stuck in the past. Then you've got the value system, where you deal with the present, and then you've got choices, which deals with the future. So Supreme, I want to throw another example at you. Notting Hill Carnival, that was an event that kept us a community event to unite our spirit, and now is it turned into just a profit making scheme?
Are you asking me?
Well, is your name Supreme?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I say it again.
Before the break I was taking into court, that's why.
So basically I'm just trying like deception. So I'm saying I'm looking at examples in the black community. So through Dougie with the Black History Month, and he saw that it's keeping us talking about history and not the future.
Okay.
And now I'm throwing to you the Notting Hill Carnival.
Notting Hill Carnival, let's look at this. Notting Hill Carnival, it was reported in the Voice newspaper, £92 million turnover. How much of that money has gone back to the black community? So what we have to look at, the same as like Black History Month, the same as all the ideas that we are going to other people to appropriate for us, where we're not managing it, that's where I see the problem. Okay, a lot of us will, let's say for instance, if we look at even our grassroots radio stations for information and news, a lot of people will listen to these types of stations, but they want to listen to BBC because BBC is correct, or they want it appropriated by the mass media. So if we're always going to someone to appropriate what we have, like our history, our culture, we will always have a problem if we're not doing it for ourselves. That is the problem that I see.
No, that means you hit a good point. It didn't quite work, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's excellent. Right, so Theo, so I want to present. So far, well, I'm kind of twisting the conversation in a certain way. So I'm saying the Black History Month's been used deceptively because it was a thing originally created for celebration. Now it's keeping us in the past. Notting Hill Carnival, it was created to unite community spirit. Now it's making profit for everybody else. So Theo, I want to turn to the music industry. Like the music industry, it was united our creativity and kept our cultural identity. Do you think now that's been taken away from us by deception?
So First of all, seeing as I've just got here, let me say good evening to one and all.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot to introduce...
everyone who's out there listening.
Theo.
So, sorry, give me another... Is it not... Am I not being picked up here?
Just double check it.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So,
There you go.
hello.
Yes, you can...
Are we good? Throw this whole query at me.
Right, so basically, sorry, I forgot to introduce you. Yeah, Theo is in the studio as well. He's coming as well, so good evening, Theo. I was going to call you more Stuart then. Okay, so we've got so many guests here today, and we're still going to bring Buzzy B back in the equation. That's what I'm a bit frightened of, you know. But he's looking there mischievously. But Theo, we're talking about deception, and initially we were talking about we played a CIA tape and talking about that, the factors behind deception, where is illusion, and how you manipulate the system. So that was the first scenario. Then we talked about politics and relationship. We touched on relationship. Now we're sort of looking at the black community, and what I'm posing the question is, have we been deceived? Are we being deceived in the community? So the first topic I've put to Dougie was Black History Month, and that is keeping us in the past. The second one I put to was Notting Hill Carnival, that is making profit. Supreme said that is making profit for everybody else. And what I'm putting to you is about the music industry. Has the music industry been taken away from us, and is it being used against us? Theo.
Well, the short answer would be yes. Right? The long answer
would be what's the how behind the yes?
Well, you're asking a specific question, relating to an area which pertains to something which we should be largely benefiting from, right? Which is our creative output, right? So, okay, if you go back to, as I came in, there was a discussion on legalities and legalese and stuff like that. So that, obviously, that plays in. That's a factor to consider in the question you're asking me. If we go to, let me see, I was interrogating this whole idea. So if we look at deception, we look at something, there's one of these definitions out there that says, an instance of an act or schemes, right, fabricated in order to mislead someone into errantly believing a falsehood or inaccuracy. So, and when you look at the music aspect of it, then obviously what came along is that, okay, you're the creative person, another person comes along and says and offers you a whole, what I might call a disingenuous incentive, you see, and then through the use of, as we've just heard mentioned earlier on, legalese, you can be then contracted, right, to devote your sweat equity and your creativity to the larger benefit of someone else besides yourself, because you do not fully comprehend what you've signed up for. So the rest of it is history, as you say, and going to the intricacies of how it's all been kind of like, how the music industry manipulates people into devoting a lot of their sweat, time, creativity, and not really deriving the benefit from it. We can go on about that, they'll ad nauseum all day, but then, like I said, the short answer is yes. That's a brief insight into how it's taken place, and obviously, that's the way it goes. So then, when it comes to deception, that's played a large part in the state of the music industry as it relates to us as it is right now.
And thank you for that, Theo. Right, James, I'm going to throw this to you. Education. And employment, because it seems like our parents came over here, but at the moment it seems like machines are taking the place of us. We used to be used, now we use less, making us useless. So what's the your term spin on education and us? Are we being deceived by this education system?
In the context of deception, well, I suppose that if we look at it in the wider context of deception, I suppose that one can say that everyone is being deceived at one level or the other. The reason why I say that, because if you go into education, a lot of people
the education, because there's one perception. You go into education thinking, well, this is what the purpose of education is. Perhaps this is the cognitive meaning in terms of what this is the stated meaning of education, and then you have the unstated aim of what education is meant to do. You think education is there to further your ambitions and make you rich or whatever, but the bigger picture is that you're just a functional a functional tool of the system. You're there to fulfill a political role in keeping society going, and keeping the cause of the capitalist system going. So it is less to your benefit, and all the ideas that is fed into you from childhood shape your reality, shape their reality. Because most people do not move away from a lot of the stuff that they've been told up to 7 years old. It doesn't, even if you change your perspective on a lot of things, that particular thing stays. It's going to shape, even when you change a new way of thinking, part of what you said before comes along with it in some aspects. So yes, I would say that education, in some way, have got a deceptive element to it. And if you're talking about education in terms of black people, African people, of course, we probably would have been the deceptive mics here. Everything is.
I've got a switch actually. I tried them off.
Everything is being deceptive tonight for the thing. Yeah, in terms of, if you talk about deception in terms of education, if we were the biggest beneficiaries in terms of deception in education, I would say that the answer would be yes, because in education, particularly in the UK or in Western countries around the world, does not necessarily reflect us as black or African people. The whole intention is everything they're teaching us in terms of historically is almost deceit, almost embellishment, and to perceive themselves, to get us to perceive them in a certain way. And in so many ways, a lot of us has bought into that. And religion was one of those, the religious aspect of religious education taught in schools have us buy into the ideals that Christianity. I think. Let me give you an example, quick example. The other day I said we were having a conversation about God and so forth, and I said, I was having a conversation, and she said, that Jesus died for me, and only God can, God can save everything. And I said, and she's from the continent, she's from Africa, and I said, she said, well, what do you believe in? I said, well, I believe in voodoo. She said, hey! She jumped back. I said, well, what's the matter? I said, well, isn't that the original religion of my ancestors? What's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it. I said, no, you have taken on another religious philosophy that does not hold you as a human being in high esteem. So if you've got to put yourself down in your beliefs, why not take those same beliefs and stuff and shape it and let it evolve? But by no way cast everything about yourself aside, because that forms part of your psychology, your very being, that sustain you for hundreds and thousands and hundreds. So why you displace that and take another point? Because when you do that, you are exalting them, not yourself. So I said, yes, that's my belief. I believe in voodoo. Shock and horror to the listeners at
the moment. So far it's not looking good for us then as a people, because we already said Black History Month is deception.
Education
in Hill Carnivals is deception in using us. The music industry is deception in using us. Employment is deception. So we're going to look to Bridget now on the film industry. And the media, how does it portray us? Is it deceiving how we really are? Is it just using us to sell their movies?
Well, obviously the media obviously marketing and everyone. So the media wants to sell what it wants to sell. So it's going to use images that it needs to sell. So if you've got a film coming out and you're going to portray it to a particular group, you're going to try and deceive everyone in order to say this is the best thing for you to do. So that, when you learn marketing, it is about using emotions to deceive. and we don't always have the positive images. So it's really about. I know there's a lot of independents that try to do their own kind of ways of stopping the images that are coming out.
Because what I'm saying is like a lot of talent shows or a lot of models or whatever, they're aspiring to get into Hollywood, but really they've only got the token 1 or 2 in the films or even
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, they haven't, because I mean it is all about connections, who you know, what you're going to do, and because every industry is there's rules of engagement in every industry, and you have to understand the rules of engagement in order to make it. And if you don't understand it, you're always going to kind of operate at the level below. But if you know the rules of engagement and you know the right people, you have the right connections. A lot of people have a head start. So I might say, I might know a director, and I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, I've got a person I know, Jammers, yeah, he's really great. Why don't you go give him a call and get him in for an audition? So based on my saying you're great, he might call you and say, hey, where somebody else who's probably been going to all the drama schools and doing all their thing and trying to get in doesn't have a chance. I'm not saying it happens in every instance, but there's rules of engagement. So, but there are a lot of independents, Black, Africans, Caribbeans. Like in Africa, you have Nollywood, you have Ghanaian and Nigerians that do their own films, that try and do their own stories, that do their own representation. Right. So you do have, if you don't want to go for the mainstream media, you can watch Nollywood films. They will have films based in Nigeria and Ghana about you have independent British directors, independent American ones. So there are, but I guess what it is, in all the industries, there's not enough of us. We're it's all sporadic. We're not like in a bunch. We haven't got the power because we're not all together united in order to kind of overthrow the deception, if that makes sense.
Right, okay.
So we need numbers. It needs to be more numbers rather than I'm over here, you're over there, they're over there. Everyone's trying to fight it from different angles, so there's not enough of us working together
to set up our own
thing. It's about sustainability. I think going forward, it's all about sustainability. That's the word.
Right, okay.
Capacity building.
Right, okay. Thank you for that. I was just going to bring in Supreme on Supreme, because you used to be like a professional footballer for Scarborough.
Yeah, Scarborough. Yeah. How did you know? How did you know? You've watched all my games.
We've got our research.
You watched all 30 minutes of me getting changed. You know, talking about deception, and you touched on the film, and
I want to bring you on the sport. You know, the sport. You see, like, because they've got all our so-called talent. You know, playing for England or running athletics. But who's really benefiting from the victories?
Yeah, I just want to step back and I'll answer that. But I look at, you touched on film, and I want you to talk about branding, how they've deceived us. You buy Lucozade. Lucosade's supposed to make you better, make you perform faster, but they've deceived you with the brand. You look at, if I see Gary Lineker, you associate him with Crisp, Crisp. Have you ever really seen him eat the Crisp? There's a lot of things where we are deceived that if you buy a particular brand, even with females especially, beauty industry and branding is saying if you don't have this particular brand, you are ugly. So they've deceived you in that way. Sports, you'd have to ask me the question again now.
Well, I think you're touching on it good, because actually that's a good point you said about marketing and advertising.
Yeah.
So in relation to sports as well, you know, I think just carry on.
As a youngster, I grew up with Coca-Cola was the real thing. Real thing for what? When you really sit down and think about it, a lot of the celebrities, especially youngsters, they are being deceived the most, because when somebody wants to play something, they will use their pop star idol, they will use the footballer, they will use the boy band, they will use the female, if you're a particular age, to deceive you to get your money, because that's what it's about, you know.
Yeah, we're back again, once again. I'd like to say, just let you know the phone lines are now open. So if you'd like to call in, the number to call is 07944431366. So once again, it's 97. We've got some mischievous, deceptive people in the building today. And it's 07944431366. 31366. Bless FM, blessradio.org. I've got to say we've got a lot of interesting viewpoints being put forward to us today. If you've just joined us, we had a exclusive recording from the CIA. I thought we'd play it again for those who never heard. And then from this, we're going to look for the choices and solutions. Basically, the conclusion that I've drawn from this is that us as a people, we're under deception in relation to black history, relation to media, relation to fashion, relation to sport, relation to everything. We've been deceived as a people, really, and now we're going to try and look at the ways forward. This is a CIA tape, for those of you who are just joining us, that we heard.
Hello everyone, this is Any Man, here to remind you that perfectly executed illusion is the ultimate goal. Plausible reasons are substituted for reality to conceal true purposes, and spectator attention is lulled and diverted. Execution must be carefully planned, exhaustively practiced, and skillfully performed. To be successful, the illusion must withstand both the direct observation of onlookers, or casuals, without exposing either the participation or identification of the agent. Strategic misdirection becomes even more effective when combined with camouflage and illusion. Proper stage management techniques provide reasons for the audience to believe their eyes instead of their reason. Such operations also had applications in naval deceptions, visual observations, and rationalize events as non-alerting. Afterward, they have some operational applications of the art of deception. 1. Introduction and general comments on the art of deception. 2. Handling of tablets. 3. Handling of powders. 4. Handling of liquids. 5. Surreptitious removal of objects. 6. Special aspects of deception for women. 7. Surreptitious removal of objects by women. And 8. Working as a team. You should pick up some important principles through this.
Alright, that was a tape that sparked off the discussion earlier about organised deception and the conclusion that us as a people, you know, we're operating under a deceptive system. So I'd like to resume. Now we're going to look, because one thing when you on discussions, a trick what they use in discussions is, as we were saying earlier, argument based on blaming, which is in the past, choices, which is in the present, values, which is in the present, and choices, which is in the future. So in the first half, we've looked at the causes, basically, and to analyse the fact that there is a deception mechanism in place. So this half now, we're going to look at values and the choices that we've got to move forward as a people. As we've highlighted, we're under a deceptive system. So, Brother Dougie, what do you think we can do now to sort of galvanise ourselves and move forward as a people to combat deception?
Okay then. Well, you see, the whole thing about deception is about control. I think it's very important that we understand that it's all about control. Because earlier on we talked about the carnival, and you know, there's people there controlling the carnival education system, they control the education system, Black History Month, and you know, it's all about control.
Okay, thank you for that insight, Dougie. And I'm just going to bring Lady Essie in on. We're looking now for solutions on how we can, as you did touch on it earlier, how we can come together and operate effectively under this kind of organised, systematic control mechanism.
I think basically your knowledge yourself, as Prof. Doug said, is really important, and it's also about, as I said previously, I think it's about galvanizing action and working more as a unified, but becoming more unified. I guess if you look, when you do go back into history and you look at like the civil rights movement, everyone was kind of working towards the same goal, no matter where they were, because you had in Africa and the Caribbean, they were working towards independence. In America, they were working towards social justice. Everyone was working towards social justice and civil rights. And then, obviously, once that's over, it's like, what is everyone working towards? What is the unified goal? What does everyone want? Because everyone kind of has everyone kind of wants the same thing, but no one's really defined it. It's because, like, for example, and it depends by generation. Because I was speaking to someone of a younger generation, and they kind of said, well, no, there's not really much racism around. they didn't believe there was because they hadn't actually experienced it. But if you had experienced racism in the 80s or 90s, you know what it is because it was in your face, whereby if it's more overt, someone might say, well, no, they call it by a different name. So it's also about how do you get each generation to kind of, what do they want? And how do you get each generation to decide to work together? And I think that's what it is. For me, it's about defining what is it that we are looking to get. And then once we do, it's about sustainability. Because we've had a lot of organisations, but a lot of them are no longer around. So it's about building generations, making sure the foundation is set so it can continue after we've all gone. So the next generation can pick it up and go, rather than once one person's left, the main person behind the organisation goes. So we have to set up organisations not around an individual. It has to be set as an organisation that can continue even if the founders aren't around. It's about foundation setting that's sustainable, that's capacity building, and just moving it forward on that angle. That's
excellent. Yes, we're definitely going to have you back here to expound on that. But thank you for your contribution. Supreme.
Yes. What came to mind is that we have no leadership. What we need is leaders. And those leaders have got to be accountable. And what they're accountable for, they've got to be transparent. The message of the people should be given to the leaders. This is one of the things that I see in our community. We don't have no form of leadership, so we will go for the other culture's leadership and tap into that. I'm just going to stray a bit because a lot of people were saying, oh, when it came to vote for Labour, you know, maybe Conservative might be good for us. That's another debate, but why are we voting for Labour? Why haven't we got our own power, what you say, our own political voting for us, for our issues? What's happened, our issues are now mixed up with their issues, and we're at the bottom of the pile because they're bringing in transgender, they're bringing in so many other things that when you look, back in the day we had, sorry to go over the problem, we had a thing called equal opportunities. It's not there no more. Then they're bringing they're bringing something, and when you realise it, hold on a minute, black, we're at the back. So how do we now become at the front? So that's what we got to look at. I look at, we need structure, we need protocol, we need transparency, we need to be not divided, we need to be more proactive, you know. So those are the things that I think is the solution. We need to have our heads of industries and support them.
Buzzy, why do you think, why we haven't got a leader like that, you know, a charismatic leader like in the past, like what Supreme was saying? Why is that not in place?
I think that my whole idea about leaders and leadership and needing someone to galvanize ideas and to cement ideas and to ferment thought and to ferment the masses behind ideas, you know. I think that we need to definitely look at what's happening right now, the current trend, because the world always move at a certain time, at a certain place. The world always move in a certain direction, whether you're with it or whether you're not with it. When Egyptian ruled, the world was moving in a certain way. You're either with it or you weren't with it, and you have to decide how you respond to the way the world is moving. So I think we have to find a strategy in the way that we respond to the way the world is moving, obviously in the context of our, you know, our position and our disposition.
Wow, that's a heavy one. I'm not even touching that one. Theo, based on what James is saying, what's our next steps? Based on what James has been said, based on what he's been said.
Well, there's a lot been said so far. Let me see if I can add to any of that. In terms of what Buzzing B just previously mentioned, I agree totally in that the whole centralized idea of having a de facto leader is an idea that historically hasn't worked out too well for us. So I'd underscore that by saying, really, if there's going to be a leader, the leader has to be a mission. It has to be the mission. That's the leader, not one individual. But then that sentiment's already been echoed several times around the table already. Within the context of what we were discussing, which is deception, what are the solutions in terms of that? Now, I was thinking about the whole media aspect that went through various different disciplines and areas and dimensions in terms of deception. And you brought up the movies and the media and everything, and I thought to myself, we're being a little fast and loose with language here. I'm not going to digress too much, hopefully. But deception has a very close relative called persuasion, and that's what the media really does when we look at it in a more refined way. Persuasion prepares people to be more vulnerable to deception, and that's what it does. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right now,
what was the word? Because some people
susceptible.
Right. Okay.
Thank you very much, Bazingi. And then in terms of dealing with things, there's things that we can do that we've already been doing for time immemorial, but maybe just not enough. If you want to really protect yourself from being deceived and accepting ideas that you don't have any much idea about, well, you have to kind of like you said, knowledge yourself. You read, you research, you take the responsibility on yourself to look for the information and find that information. You see, and then you can build with others in that way, really. So that's really a kind of first start. When it comes down to things like, and obviously we have to understand that what we're dealing with, right? That's a political, economic, social regime. When I get out of this idea of saying system, right? Because the whole idea they look for is to control material wealth, control economic outcomes, control opportunities, and all of that persuasion and all of that deception is all guaranteed from them to work towards those ends, to persuade you to make you more susceptible to deception in order to relinquish your own wealth personally and collectively into the hands of others. That's how it works. And a lot of us need to really understand the very foundation and fundamental of what that whole idea, what you call the system, is actually aiming for. Before you can prepare yourself, before you can prepare to guard yourself even against that, you have to know what you're dealing with. And that's of paramount importance.
So, because James just touched on about that no leader required element, yeah. So, what do we have? Challenge the
let me just jump in here because I think I can see what Buzzer B is saying, and I do agree with him that you see this thing where when a magic wand and want a leader to prepare and everything, I think those days are finished now. I mean, yes, you do need someone. It's like a driver. You do need someone ahead to take to a certain point. Yeah, I do agree with that, right? But to learn on this individual now, no, you know, that can't work now. You see what I'm saying, right? And that's why it's very important now to understand, because yes, in the past we had people like the Garvey, the Malcolm X, and they were powerful, but they were powerful. But what happened when we take out the leader? What happened? A lot of organizations just fall apart. You see what I'm saying? So it's not the leader, it's the organization and the ideas that carry it on. You see what I'm saying? You know, I've been involved in organization practically all my life, nearly all my life, you know, and I've seen where when you take out one individual, you know, everything just fall apart. You see? So, but I think you want to jump in? Yeah.
I want to make a point, and there's a couple of points, is that when you look at the parties that are running, they have a leader. If the leader goes wrong, the party's still there, you know. So what we've done, even here...
No, it's not a leader. It's the party you're talking about.
No,
it's the party you're talking about.
I just said the party.
It's the party. Yeah.
So
no, he's just a voice, but it's the party. The most important thing is the party.
Yeah.
You know.
And what does the party have?
What do you mean the party has?
Who speaks? The party. The leader.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the point I'm trying to raise is that you need leaders.
No.
Right. And the next point, what I realised here, we said, and this is a problem that I see in our community. You said we must name a solution. I was the first person that came on, and everybody focused on what I said, but not named the solution, and that's a problem that we do have.
No.
We do have a problem with that.
No. I think
the problem is that we've lost focus because you are not the solution. And that is one of the problems we have. When we sit down as a group of people, if I say why, and everybody focuses on why, and we've only here for 2 hours, we haven't got the solution.
No, but you said the solution was we need to have leaders.
Yes, right.
Yeah, that's what you said.
I said in opposition to.
You know,
I think I responded to you, but I also gave my solution. I'm saying that I kind of disagree with you that we need maximum leadership. Because what we did in the past, what we had was maximum leadership, where everything revolved around one person. You know, and when that person goes, my whole thing was about. I don't think that no longer works. I don't think it works for us anymore. Yeah. To me, it's more amalgamation and a marrying of ideas and concepts, and anyone can come and carry those out and galvanize people to do it. So that was my solution, as opposed to what I was offering a different alternative to what you're offering.
Yeah.
It sounds like we've all said the same thing from a different angle. Because I sort of said something similar about we need an organisation, that foundation rather than the leader. Yeah, I know, but ideas. You have your ideas, and then you have the organisation, and then you get the leaders. So unity of purpose. Yeah, because I said. Yeah. So kind of before summarise. So you've said we need the ideas, unity of purpose, and then the organisation. Then you get the leaders. So it sounds like we all have kind of come up with a semi-solution.
But we're not talking about one particular leader, are we?
No, I said leaders.
Yeah. So let's be clear on that. You're talking about...
you said leaders.
If you need leaders, yeah, that's fair enough.
You said leaders. Did you say plural?
If we're talking about one individual leader, that's where we're going to fall apart.
Yeah, let's define.
Leadership. Right. It's about leadership skills, right? Hold on.
Well, I mentioned more than one thing. I'm kind of interested. You know, one thing. You know, somebody said something to me, and this is very interesting. And I know we got some time challenges here. Before. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us in this room. Before we go to a meeting, there's a meeting for the meeting. Yeah. We in here will have to decide, James, you lead on this. You're the strongest. You're going into battle with people, technically, lyrically, so we have to have leadership. If I go in, I believe in his cause, I believe in the cause, but I'm the weakest at that point. We need leadership. So you need someone who's going to go on a platform and lead us. If you look at any, you mentioned Africa, Caribbean, they all, if you look at Europe, they all have somebody that represents and leads them. We haven't.
Yeah, but
we haven't got niche.
Yeah, but hold on. But I think but the thing is this, right? Let's look at. I mean, brother, I'm reasoning with you, you know what I mean? 100%. Yeah, but I'm reasoning with you still, you know what I mean? If someone says I'm reasoning, you like say I'm not supposed to say no on you. You know what I mean? I'm just reasoning. But the thing is this, right?
We've only got 3 minutes.
But the thing is this, right? In the past, where certain kind of leaders, right? And what happened in the past, when you shut down those leaders, what happened? The organisation fails, right? So, but I did say to you that you do need certain individuals. It's like a driver, right? You can drive the minivan, take to a certain point, right, to a certain point. Yeah. So I mean, if you talk about leaders, right, that's a different argument. But talking about an individual leader, no, I don't really buy that.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time now, so I think we're going to have to have a part 2. So basically, what we're going to do now, we're going to go around the table and we're just going to ask individually what's the choices we need to make for the future. Start with Theo.
Let's first one too.
Right, briefly, keep it brief now. Choices for the solution or solutions for the...
Well, I'm not even bothering that question. I'm going to say I'm going to come back to that and try and complete this whole. With Supreme, you see, the thing about it is it's not so much a wholesale disagreement in terms of what you're talking about with leadership. You see, when you mention the political party, you see what happens there is that they have a manifesto and a unified purpose, and whoever that leader is the person designed to concretize the message and represent it in a way that it will carry it and guarantee votes for the people of the party who are backing them as leader. Do you see how it works? So the whole idea is that person has to represent a certain idea within the minds of the wider electorate. But you see, that leader is carrying forward a message for the whole party.
Thank you, Theo.
And not only that,
Theo, we've got a time challenge now. So we're going to go past to Bridget now. What's your summary of what our next move is, or what we should do?
Unified ideas, throw it in the hat. Unified purpose.
Supreme.
Constructive solutions.
I'm going to mirror what Bridget said. A marrying of ideas and also systems through effective leadership, but more important, unity of purpose.
And Brother Dudley.
I'm going to leave by saying that the only way we can solve our problem is through organisation.
Thank you, Theo. Your 30 seconds.
Purpose, leadership, contingency.
Right. I'd like to thank all the guests here. So I think we've come to a conclusion that, well, we have to start defining ourselves, make our own moves. Don't listen to what anybody else says. Question everything and make your steps. That is the way forward. I'd like to thank each and every one, and we're leaving you with this. Thank you and good night.
You're in tune to DJ Jammers on Bless Radio, UK's #1 station for great music. Don't touch that dial.